I hate HR. I don't like HR. HR is dysfunctional. And I begin to say, why? Because if you look at an organization, a lot of its success is driven by the way that it manages its human asset. I've had a passion for decades about how do you build organizations that create value for others.
In this episode, I sit down with Dave Ulrich, a global authority on leadership and human capability, to tackle one of the most critical questions for today's leaders. How can we create real value while unlocking the full potential of our people? We explore how anchoring to what truly matters can help us lead with clarity even in times of chaos. So if you want actionable insights to redefine your leadership, build resilient teams, and deliver lasting impact, this episode will change the way you think about creating value.
A customer sits down and says, I'm going to make a choice of product A, product B. Can you as a CEO help them see the value of your offering better than somebody else's?
Most of CEOs, they're not experienced enough or skilled enough to be in a conversation about talent, leadership, and culture.
If you can create in your head, I'm here today as a CEO to create stakeholder value for all the humans who interact with my company.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to a new episode of the World Class Leader Show. And today, I'm so excited to have with me Dave Ulrich. So David is a professor of Ross School of Business, University of Michigan, and a partner of RBL Group, a consulting firm focused on building human capability that creates value for all stakeholders. Dave has published over 200 articles and book chapters and over 30 books. He edited Human Resource Management for 10 years and served on editorial board of 4 other journals and on the board of directors for Herman Miller for 16 years, and has spoken to large audiences in 90 countries, performed workshops for over half of the Fortune 200, coached successful business leaders, and is a distinguished fellow in the National Academy of Human Resources. Dave, thank you so much for being on the show today.
You're very kind, Andrea. Thank you. When you read that resume, it makes me tired.
I know. It's always good, by the way, when you hear our own story profile read by someone else. I find it fascinating how the mind works. Dave, so I've been waiting for this episode for many months because I really admire your work. And I can't stop, asking myself, why people call you, the father of modern HR. Where is this coming from?
Well, I'm not the father of HR. I'm the father of 3 children and 10 grandchildren. But it's interesting. Every few years, there's an article that comes out. I hate HR. I don't like HR. HR is dysfunctional. I think another one recently came out. And I begin to say, why? Because if you look at an organization, a lot of its success is driven by the way that it manages its human asset, the people, the culture, the leadership. And so I have a passion. I've had a passion for decades about how do you build organizations that create value for others. I've written about it. I've talked about it. I think I didn't give myself the name father of HR. I'm embarrassed by that, actually, because I think HR is a field with many parents, both fathers and mothers and grandmothers and grandfathers. But I'm part of a group that is really trying to create more value for an organization through the human resource element.
Makes sense. By the way, I'm with you. I mean, there is all this stigma about HR, at least, this perception about HR being like an entity, not really involved and connected to the business and to leadership to some extent, right? So I'm really excited to have this conversation about really the human capital, what is the real capability of humans and what become possible, when we unlock that in humans. But let me start with a question that is important to me and certainly for the audience. Given all incredible experience that you have, what do you think is the biggest, single biggest shift in leadership priorities for CEOs, especially as they navigate complex global challenges these days? At least that's from my view. And it's probably as well also in service of the stakeholder expectations. So really, in other words, what really often is misunderstood about today's role of CEOs in the society?
There's so many ways to answer that question. There are groups that do great work, and you've interviewed them, you've talked to them. What's on the mind of the CEO today? I generally find 3 things. Number 1, managing the economic uncertainties and political uncertainties and demographic uncertainties, living in a world that's unpredictable. Boy, do I wish we could predict. And we're seeing less and less of that predictability. COVID, unpredictable. Post-COVID, almost more unpredictable.
Yeah.
Second is technology. I think if you don't mention AI 10 times in every interview, you might as well not do the interview. It's all AI all the time. I mean, it's just technology, AI. And the third is organization and people. And in the work I've seen, those three seem to be an integrated system of what CEOs are worried about. That's the context in which we live. How do I manage uncertainty? I love to talk about how does a CEO find certainty in uncertainty? Don't chase the uncertainty. In a world of uncertainty, find certainty. Let me just give a quick example of that. When I work with business leaders, I say, the world is uncertain. What do I do? And I say, do you have children? And I don't know, Andrea, if you have children or not. As I said, we have children and grandchildren. Who has a teenager? And they say, I have a teenager. I have two teenagers. Where's your daughter going to go to college? Oh, I don't know. Who's she going to marry? Oh, I don't know. What's she going to study? Oh, I don't know. Where's she going to live? I don't know. As a parent, do you know anything about your child? And they laugh and say, gee, I guess I don't. And I say, let me change the question. Do you love your daughter? And suddenly the energy in a room changes. I love my daughter. I love my son. That will not change. And I often ask, have they tested that? And if you have a teenager, they probably tested it once or twice. Look at the shift. No matter where my child goes to college, if they do or don't go to college, marry, live, you're going to love them. That's the certainty. So when I work with CEOs, I love to say, what's the certainty in your life? No matter what the uncertainty is, what's the certainty that you're committed to, that energizes you? What's the certainty of the company you lead? Amazon, their number one agenda. We will be committed to serving customers. We're certain about that. No matter what business we're going to go into, AWS, whatever business, we're going to be certain about that dedication. As a CEO, I love to ask you personally, what are you certain about in a world of uncertainty? And what is your company certain about? And when that certainty pervades, then the uncertainty comes. It's the same with our children. We have 3 children and 10 grandchildren. I mentioned that. I will love them. And I will put them on top of my priority list. I'm certain about that. Now, that's a long answer to your comment, but it's the CEO agenda, uncertainty, technology, people. I've gone into the people dimension because I think that's a driver of the agenda. And one of my tests of leadership, do you turn your skills and your knowledge into somebody else's skills? Let me say that again. And I'll give a quick example. And I'm sorry I'm talking so long. I get excited and energized. You ask what energizes me, it's these ideas. I'm coaching a woman who's an incredible leader. She grew up in the Philippines, poor, went to school, couldn't read, couldn't write, sat in the back row. Quick story. Top student in the Philippines, came to a U.S. university, graduated valedictorian, Harvard, MIT, multiple master's degrees, 6 languages. I mean, you've interviewed these people. Just unbelievable story. She's now the president of a university, and I'm coaching her. And you've done coaching, and it would be fun to see your response. Everybody wants her to tell her story because it's an incredible story, rags to riches. When I coached her, I said, quit telling your story. What? And I said, your job as the leader is not to tell your story. It's to help 40,000 students and 2,000 faculty and staff create theirs. Leadership is not about what you know and do. It's how what you know and do enables others to know and do what they need to do better. To me, that's my certainty. I am certain that I want to help others develop their gifts and their talents in ways that are helpful for them.
I mean, I love it. I mean, we really started, with big thoughts about it. And I love it for a couple of reasons. One is because it's so much consistent in what I see. And what you call the certain, to me, is what they should anchor to. And the anchor is what we stand for, essentially. What we stand for as CEOs, that regardless whatever noise is around us, we're going to stay committed to what we really stand for because we believe to the possibility of creating something. And to me, that is such a great reminder of, having a clear North Star that drive us, but also drives the entire organization. And the second part that you mentioned about is not much about my story as a leader, but it's more about creating or helping people creating the condition for creating their own stories. To me, it's all about creating then their own narrative, which is a narrative of possibilities. So I like how you frame it. I think it's such a fantastic way to refer to leadership, through this lens. I love it. So
Thank you. And I think I often see for those of us who teach, we love to stand up, I'm going to tell you what you need to know. Wrong. I'm going to help you pull out of me the few insights I might have that help you do what you need better. So when I often start teaching, I often say, what's the biggest challenge you're facing in your job around people, leadership, culture, policies, hybrid work, whatever the challenge, AI. Remember, we got to say AI 10 times today. That's number 3.
That's a great amount.
What's your challenge with that? And then say, today we're going to try to discover some things you can do. And so instead of teaching case studies of companies you don't care about, I love to make you and your company the case study. I'm here to help you and your company do the things you need to be certain about. I love your idea of narrative, story. How can you build your story that allows you to succeed in the world in which you live?
Agreed. And that's, to me, is a fantastic way to frame leadership and see, and helping, as a leader, to frame conversation that mean to happen in an organization, through that lens. I'm really interested about your definition of value. If we switch a little bit more into success, right? So what does it mean driving success these days? And
go ahead.
Go on,
please.
No, I think you already probably, maybe that my question is becoming clear, but really is your definition of value. How do we define value?
Yeah. Let me tell you what I learned. On the back of my shelf, and welcome to my office, I have pictures of people who I admire.
I see amazing people there. Yeah.
Amazing people. It's Martin Luther King. It's Sheikh Zayed. It's, where is it? My father, who, and then a few months ago, my wife put up her picture and said, I need that as well, which I made a mistake. It should have been there sooner. Let me tell you my definition of value with a quick anecdote with my wife. I give her a gift. We've been together a long time. Mm-hmm. Who defines the value of the gift I give her for the holiday, for her birthday, for a celebration? And it hit me, it's her. And so the concept of value is defined by the receiver, not the giver. When we first got married a long time ago, I get her tickets to sporting events. And her comment was, enjoy yourself, because that's not value to her. So value is a concept of the person I'm interfacing with, what will be meaningful to them? Back to the leader. Your job, our job as leaders, your job as a CEO, any CEO, is to create value for those you serve. And so I love to then think about stakeholders. Pretty simple. I'm a CEO. I live in a complex ecosystem and world. I've got customers. What matters to them? Product, price, quality. I've got investors. What matters to them? Consistent earnings, profitability. I've got a community where I live and work, the citizens. What matters to them? The reputation, the lifestyle. Inside the company, I have employees. I have a board. So what I love to think about is value are the stakeholders whom I serve and what they value. Now I'm going to go one step deeper. I come from the world of human resources. I'm going to blow it up. It's not the Dilbert cartoons and all the critiques we started with. Okay. For me, the human in human resources are all the individual people who get value from the company. Customers are humans. A customer sits down and says, I'm going to make a choice of product A, product B, service A, service B. Can you as a CEO help them see the value of your offering better than somebody else's? An investor says, I'm going to invest in your company, either through debt or through equity or through some other form. Can I show them the value of my investment as a human being, citizens, employees? And so for me, the job of a CEO, and this is where they couple with HR, is to manage all the humans who are stakeholders so that they each get value from their transaction with our firm.
Yeah, love it. And I fully agree. And I think is, to me, to unlock what you just described, which to me is music for my ear, I think is the ability for CEOs, but, in that regard, any leader, to really put themselves in other people's shoes. Because to me I know it's a given, right, as a concept, but the reality is, at least in my experience in organizations, is that's not so obvious. I mean, as a principle is obvious, but in the reality, in the application of that, it's very difficult because we are driven by our own self-interest or by priorities that are not necessarily in service of who we serve, across the entire stakeholders pool. I think that is such an amazing reminder. Love that. It's a great definition of value.
And it gets very real. Quick, I love the anecdotes. I'm coaching a CFO, and I don't know, you coach so many leaders. I don't know if you're willing to acknowledge it. Some of these leaders have 20 IQ points on me. They're smart. They're brilliant.
They are.
The woman I just referred to, the president of this university, unbelievable, 6 languages. I do feedback, do a 360, I get data, and I sit down with this CFO, happens to be a man. You don't listen very well. And he interrupted me. And he said, I listened just fine. And I said, you just interrupted me. And I said, you're smarter than I am. What's listening? Here's what he said. Listening means that I understand. And he stopped. And I said, what does that mean? He said, when somebody comes to see me, I know who they are. I know the context. I know the situation. And 30 seconds into a meeting, I know where they're going. I understand. So then I start texting. I start doing other things because I understand. And I looked and I said, you're wrong. Listening is not that you understand. It's that the other person feels understood. And he said, I don't understand. And I said, I know that. That's why I'm here. Listening is not that you understand. It's that the other person feels understood. And that's that value defined by the receiver that you just said. Listening is not that you've said something. It's that somebody else gets value because of what you said. And I find that so helpful, not just as a CEO, but in day-to-day living. Look at the person in front of me. How do I help them reach their goals? What are their certainties, their goals? And how can I enable them to accomplish them? Okay. I feel that premise is just an assumption that I think sometimes we lose track of.
Yeah. And look, Dave, to validate what you just said, my experience in coaching both CEOs and C-suite leaders is similar, meaning there is a tendency, again, I don't like generalization because everybody's different, but there is a kind of tendency of leaders primarily in that position to reduce their listening time because they feel like I get what I need, I can move forward either because I need to drive a decision or because it's clear enough for me to do something with that, which to me is not really empowering for them because they might miss something in the real conversation. Because as we know in conversations, it's not always what we say, but it's also what we are not saying that if it's not properly understood, we probably miss it. But also, as you said, it's an opportunity for other person to really feel seen and heard. And given what's right now, which hasn't changed in the last 10 years, the percentage of people that feel engaged at work still very limited. I think listening is one of the best tools actually to change, to turn in the table. You mentioned, I'm really curious, Dave, on, it's not switching, but just building on what we discussed. I mean, again, that's one of the questions that I need to ask you. Because look, the relation between the CEO and now we're talking about function, not really as a human capability, the HR function. It's known that for some organizations, that relation is not as strong as it should be. Personal view, as I'm sure you agree, the HR and CEO, they should be so close to the point that one is the sounding board of the other. But that's my personal view, given that, for me, humans is the real job of any senior leader. However, it's true that we jump, I'm sure that has been your experience too, we jump on in an organization where there is a disconnection between the CEO and the HR function, like that is a delegation of the things the CEO maybe doesn't want to do it or doesn't feel important. And culture, by the way, whatever cultural transformation change is going on, once delegated to HR, to me is the beginning of a failure because something is missing in how the CEO is taking ownership about that. Really, I need to ask you this question. So what your view, perception about this relationship?
Let me try to answer that with a anecdote again, or an image. You're a CEO, you have a management meeting, you have a team coming in, and the head of HR comes to the meeting and is going to talk about culture, leadership development, employee engagement, whatever the data is. The first few slides that I feel so strongly about, or slides presentation, the head of HR should talk about should not be culture, leadership, employee engagement. It should be who are the stakeholders, customers, investors that we as a company are trying to serve. In HR, we talk about business results. Financial results is a lag indicator. We report what we did last year. Having a personal relationship with a customer increases revenue. Having a confidence from an investor increases our profitability and price earnings ratio. And so for me, the conversation between HR and CEO begins with stakeholder value. Can we show that the personal relationship between customers and our firm, investors, citizens in our firm, will create value for our company? When HR leaders come with that mindset, I'm not here to do HR. I'm here to help build value for this company. Then the relationship is very close. Because some of that customers, why do they pick a company? Because the employees they dealt with were phenomenal. When I go to a hotel, the employees and I don't want to start mentioning hotels or the other ones will get angry with me, but when I go to a car dealership, it's not just the product, it's the service, it's the relationship, business to business, business to customer. So for me, the HR professional, the senior HR leader, the C-suite HR executive, and the CEO should be on the same page. And then HR brings unique insights. It's like the CFO wants to bring unique insights about managing money, the CIO about technology, AI, number 6. We got to get AI in. We're going to get our 10 AIs. I think this head of HR comes with 3 insights to the CEO, to the woman or man as CEO or C-suite. Number 1, do we have the right talent? Given what our customers need, given what our investors have confidence in, do our employees have the skills, knowledge, and abilities to move forward? Number 2, do we have the right leadership? As a CEO, are there skills you need? C-suite executives, are the skills our team needs? We have found that it's often the square root of the number of employees who represent the key leaders to the company. So if you have a 1,000-person firm, that's 33 leaders. And this isn't math science, it's an estimate. If you have 10,000 employees, it's 100. They leverage. Are those key leaders demonstrating the skills that will get customers and investors and communities to have more confidence in us? Talent, leadership, and the third for me, you said it, is organization and culture. It's not just getting an all-star team of people who don't play well together. I don't know if you follow sports. One of my great experiences that I'll always remember, it was about 10 years ago, it was Brazil and Germany in the World Cup. And for anybody who follows the World Cup in the quarterfinals or semifinals, you'll remember, Germany, 4 minutes, they scored 4 goals or 5. It was just an incredible teamwork. So it wasn't just talent, it was teamwork. Here's why I remember. A month later, I gave a talk in Brazil, and I wanted to show the value of culture and teamwork. So I showed that 5 minutes. 600 people in Brazil were booing me because they are devoted football fans. Boo, boo. And I yelled back, my name is Tom Peters. But look at the message. I'm a CEO. We said there were 3 things I'm worried about: uncertainty, technology, and organization. In that organization domain, there's 3 things. Do I have the right people for today and tomorrow? Are they engaged? Are they committed? Are they competent? Do I have the right leadership? Both me, what do I need to change, and the teams I work with? And 3, do I have the right organization? We call them capabilities or culture, whatever you want to call it. Do I have the right team? That's where the HR person and the CEO become unified.
And I have a question for each of the three things. But before getting to there, I want to stay a second as a follow-up, to what you said before in terms of how HR leaders should really approach the CEO and what kind of conversation they need to happen and how they need to drive that conversations. Now, my personal experience, although I don't work primarily from a coaching standpoint, I don't work much with chief human resource officer, but I'm always involved in a project that I'm part of. And sometimes I feel like there is an inexpressed need of chief human resource officer maybe to become a CEO in the future. So, and I know there is broadly a perception and many chief human resource officers will never be nominated as a CEO by the board because either is the CFO or the CEO, so there is a perception about that. Do you think that the way our HR leaders position themselves in front of the CEO, just building on what you just shared, is a reason why they are not so much considered to become a CEO in the future? Because is that always because they're not so much involved into business? What's your view about what is missing potentially from human resource leaders to take, the reign and lead an organization in the future? Because there are not so many examples, really, right?
There are some, not many.
There are a few.
First of all, some fascinating research with Korn Ferry a few years ago. Every company has a leadership competence model. These are the skills of an effective leader: setting vision, goals, etc. And Korn Ferry has a ton of data. That's probably, they would not be happy with that. Ton should be numbers, but they have gobs of data. They have a profile of CEOs on these 10 dimensions. Then they compared the CEO profile against the chief marketing officer, the chief technology officer, the chief financial officer, and the chief HR officer, C-suite. We were shocked. The chief HR officer had a profile most matching CEO.
Oh, there you go. Interesting.
That was interesting. And so it's an interesting perspective. And the reason I think that came out is, I got to do the other thing we reported that in Harvard Business Review. But what was really interesting is that applied to the best chief HR officers. The average HR person did not have a profile like the CEO, but the best are doing that. So with that backdrop, quick response. Number one, I think sometimes we say CHROs are not credible because they're not CEOs. I think that's a bad assumption. CHRO is a legitimate, value-added function because we bring to you, the CEO, listening, knowledge about talent, leadership, and organization that will help you reach your goals. I don't have to leave the function to be good. I'm good where I am. I talked this morning, I don't think I should share. If you look at the 10 biggest names in business history the last 10 years, and I didn't get his approval to share it, one of those names jump out. He was with one of those people, and you know the names. Just pick any of them. And he said, I remember in the 90s and 2000s when I was chief HR officer, everybody said, get to the table. He said, I wanted to get away from the table because the CEO demanded I'm at every meeting, and he turned to me for advice on business. And I was just saying, well, I got to run a function. I got to run my people. I was wedded to the CEO, and we were connected. You don't have to leave HR to become good. That's the first one. Second, if you're going to want to be a CEO out of the HR function, you've got to know the business. You've got to have business literacy, finance, strategy. You can't go into the CEO role and just say, wow, I'll make people feel good. No, that's not the agenda. This company's got to succeed. And we see it. Lena Nair is a great example. I'll share.
Yeah.
She was CHRO at Unilever, now running L'Oreal, if I remember right.
L'Oreal, yes, correct.
And doing a great job. Now, what she's going to have to do probably, and I know Lena, I think she's phenomenal. I probably shouldn't have shared the name, but she surrounds herself with people who have expertise she may not have. She's willing to say, I need a CFO. I need a strategy officer. I need a marketing officer. I need a technology officer who will allow me to pull their knowledge together into a great team. And from what I gather, she's doing, I'm sure you've talked to her or know her, she's doing great work.
Well, I would like to have her on the show because to me, she represents, a uniqueness to some extent, in the business world. And I think what you just shared to me, it makes so much sense. I mean, look, my experience with CEOs is they never really know everything about what's going on. They really seldom understand everything. So if you don't, surrounded yourself, by people that they have the expertise that you don't have, it's going to be at the beginning, of a disaster, leading an organization, no matter where you're coming from. So to me, that is such.
So you were going to ask me a question. I'm going to ask you one. Mm-hmm. You've been around CEOs for 20 years. You coach them. You have this show for 3 or 4 years. It's an incredible group of people you've talked to. What should CEOs know about managing their human capability, their talent, their leadership, their organization, that would help them be more successful? And this wasn't scripted, but I'm sitting here. I've already got a page of notes from our conversation. I love to learn. That's my North Star. That's my certainty. What would you say CEOs need to know most about managing this organization, people?
My experience, Dave, is most of CEOs, they're not experienced enough or skilled enough to be in a conversation about talent, leadership, and culture. So, and again, sometimes I feel like the strong suit is somewhere else, financial background or commercial background, operational background. So there's a tendency maybe to move or to spend more time and effort in areas that they know better, one. The second element is depending what the organization is at any given time, is just, the priority could be in a specific area than others. I give an example. I've been involved in large engagements in the last few years, and in both circumstances, there were organizations that were under crisis, which is very common these days. Given all the uncertainties going on, a lot of organizations, they're restructuring, reorganizing. So they're living in crisis, whether they call it in that way or not. So let's call it turnaround, whatever. But the reality is, when you're in crisis, unfortunately, the focus about the future, which is really talent, leadership, and culture, is not there because there's so much, driven by the day-to-day and the short term. To me, what they need to do, they need to be much more interested in the topic, interested in what does it mean being valuable in a conversation about the future talents. It doesn't mean, so to me, it's a matter of interest because it's not a strong suit.
Well, and
Does that make sense?
I love it. Let me build on your thoughtful comment. I could tell stories on this, but I'll try to be helpful to the listeners. If the conversation about leadership, talent, and organization starts with leadership, talent, and organization, they're not as interested. If it starts with, we will do this so that our price earnings ratio goes up and our investors and shareholders make more money. We will do this so that our net promoter score with key customers goes up. Then the CEO says, oh, I'm interested in that. That's my KPIs. That's my OKR. That's what we as a business need. When HR can do that, they succeed. We also found, we love research, and I'm not trying to bore people with research. We've done, for a number of years, we were part of a study called Top Companies for Leadership. And these are the companies that are known as great leadership developers. They have higher market value, et cetera. In those companies, the senior leadership team, CEO and C-suite, would often spend 15 to 20% of their time on the human capability issues. That's talent, organization, leadership. I'm not trying to be prescriptive because you said it brilliantly, every company, every situation is different. But as a CEO, am I spending about a day a week on my talent? Now, what does that mean? Are you paying attention to leadership succession? Are you investing the next generation? Are you purposely thinking about culture and diagnosing how does our culture build value in the marketplace? Are you attending training programs? Are you not just having somebody come in and do a case study about a company you don't care about? I keep going back to that because that's my world.
Yeah.
I get so frustrated. We're going to learn a lot about a company we don't care about. No, that's not what I'm here to do. I want to learn about our company. Are you as the senior executive spending time in those issues so that, and I love what you're saying, we vote by our feet and our energy. And when we do a little exercise, and I encourage the CEOs to do this with their team, we say there's 4 things you manage a company to succeed. I love simplicity, Andrea. My PhD is in taxonomy, numerical taxonomy. You worry about strategy and positioning in the market. Do we have products customers buy? You worry about financial performance. You worry about technology. We're done now with AI. It's just technology. And you worry about people and organization. If you had to divide 100 points, strategy, market, technology, organization, and finance, given what you need to do as a CEO or C-suite executive to move forward, how would you divide the 100? I've done that exercise for 20 years.
Interesting.
Almost always, the highest number is people and organization, usually 35 to 45 points. And here's why. They say, we know how to do finance. We've got a great CFO. We've got great discipline. We know how to do finance. We're learning how to do AI. We can contract it. We work with some of the big players. We've got a market position. But we've got to get that to happen through our people and organization. That's the piece that, and you said it brilliantly, that we may not be as gifted at. I came through manufacturing. I came through finance. I came up through marketing. I know that that's the piece we've got to manage because that's the differentiator. It's a fun exercise to do.
And it's very interesting. And it doesn't surprise me 100% because, so I think here's the point, in my experience, Dave, is one thing is talking about it, and one other thing is living inside of that. And that to me is the major difference. Why I'm saying this, because there are so many leaders talking about talent, leadership, and culture. I mean, I have attended, so many meetings with the CEOs, not only CEOs, to be fair, other C-suite leaders, they were talking about these things like it matters to them. And I believe that matters to them. But then they were not really living inside of that. At some point, they were starting to delegate it like, well, someone else is going to do it or something for later because we have another priority right now. The question to me, which I think is consistent with what you have seen, until you really take ownership about this subject, and taking ownership to me is start from your own integrity. Say, if I committed to this, I'm going to start operating, from this and not just as an observer or something else. Because otherwise they would be just complaining and talking about why we're not moving fast here or there. So to me, that's really important. And I think as a segue of the question I wanted to ask you, instead of asking you 3 questions for the 3 segments that you mentioned, talent, leadership, culture, I'm going to ask you one question that covers probably all of 3, which, by the way, is very much connected with a conversation we're just having, is what's really, if you think about the future, I mean, it's not difficult. You mentioned before, it's not about only the talent that we have right now, or the leadership that we have right now, or the culture that we have right now, what we need in the future to create something meaningful and valuable for us, etc. I know it's a difficult question, but I know that is a top questions that I hear every single time at the top table in organization is, how can we predict what kind of talents we need in the future? What skills do we need? What leaders we need in the future? And what culture we need to create? It's not just something that we copy and paste from Amazon or from other organizations. So how CEOs and C-suite can really navigate through the uncertainty and start predicting what is really needed inside the human capability for the organization? What's your view?
First of all, we may never get it right. Finance is more predictable because it looks backward. It reports what we did last year, so you can get rigor.
Right.
Technology is sort of predictable. Managing people is uncertain because anyone who's been in a relationship that goes up and down and goes around and all those things. But I'm going to change one word in your question. You said it 3 times. How can we build our talent? How can we build leadership? How can we build organization? If you as a leader change the we to our customer, what does our customer need from our talent? What does our customer need from us as leaders? What does our customer need from our culture? What you're then doing is not looking at what you do. It's what the customer will need because of what you do. And that
different context. It's going to change.
Different context. You just, one word changes the way we think. And that's where we started our discussion is values defined by the receiver. I'll give a quick example with my wife. We were busier than ever. I was doing a degree. She was getting her PhD. We had 3 children. We didn't outsource them. We decided that we'd take care of them ourselves. We didn't call in nannies and other.
Right.
And I thought, what's the best gift I can give her? Here it was. We celebrate Christmas. That's our value set. I took the 3 kids from Christmas Day to New Year's Day so that I, as a father, could go away and give her a week alone. And she came back and said, that's the best gift I've ever gotten. You were gone. And after a few years, I thought, that's probably not a good thing that she's happier when I'm gone. So I had to change that gift. But the notice is she was so stressed that she had a week by herself. That's the mindset of a CEO. It's not, are we the employer of choice? Are we the employer of choice of employees our customers would choose? I often look at companies, and most of our CEOs have a competence model. Here's the skills of leader. I say, show me your brand. What have you promised your customers in your brand logic? Do those 2 models overlap 90%? Well, HR did the competencies, marketing did the brand. Wrong. We're one company. Culture. Your culture is not your internal values. It's how your values create value for a customer. And so that outside-in lens, just for me, Andrea, it gets us as leaders thinking less about us. And that's why I think it takes away some of the hubris. Leaders don't need arrogance and pride. They need curiosity. They need the capacity to learn and the capacity to grow. And I think looking outside to today and tomorrow's customers helps us begin to do that.
Love it. And I think it's just as you're just saying, changing the context, change completely the answer, which to me is really great. So I've only the last 2 questions. One is, it's more about the personal element of being a leader. I mean, we can take a CEO, but honestly, in this regard, we can take any sort of senior leader that has huge responsibility to drive results. And what I notice right now, which probably is not a surprise, but I see an increased level of pressure in leading an organization. It's an increasing level of pressure due to the market condition, etc. Is it something that you are experiencing too? Meaning, with your customers, with your experience, you see level of pressure is increasing, and how, if you have any suggestion for leaders, how to deal with pressure when you feel like the world is against you, or that is a continuous battle between good things happening and bad things are gonna make you go back again, etc. So what's your view about leading these days?
You said it brilliantly when I asked you the question. You said we need to have better conversations and we need to manage in crises. Pressure is the ongoing crisis. I could give a long answer. I'm going to give a really tight answer. You coach leaders. I've coached some leaders. I always end with the question, what are you doing to take care of yourself? What are you doing to take care of yourself? And sometimes I think leaders forget that the way we care for ourselves, physically, emotionally, socially, what are you doing to get your energy back?
Yes.
And I remember one CEO I was coaching, he said, I love to go to my second home. Now, most CEOs have wealth, they have affluence, they have economic, because I relax. When have you been? Oh, it's been 6 months. And I looked at her and I said, I'm going to tell you a secret. There's this thing called a telephone and the internet. You can go to your second home and still stay connected. He said, oh, yeah. Another leader, what do you do to stay connected? I love my family. What is your son or daughter doing? He had a son, and his son was playing basketball for a high school team. How many games have you made? Oh, I'm busy. I looked at her and I said, you have a jet as part of your job. You can fly from anywhere in the world. Look at your son and say, I will never miss your basketball game. Another leader, I'm sorry, I'm getting off on this. How do you care for yourself? We have phones. I bought 2 leaders' cell phones, and I've said, give this number only to the closest people you know, your mother, your father, your spouse, your children. And when that phone rings, anywhere, anytime, let them know you'll take it. What if I'm in an important meeting? When that phone rings, they have access. They called back 3 months later and said, thank you. Now, sometimes you got to help people know what access means, that it's not mom or dad, I just got a bad grade on a test. That's not phone worthy. But if there is something real, I think we care. I hope leaders that are listening are really taking care of themselves. That exercise, space, emotionally, do something that relaxes you. I don't know, Andrea, what relaxes you? What renews? I got to confess one for me. It's old. In the 90s, when I was stressed, I would watch 2 episodes of a TV show in America called Seinfeld. It is a stupid show. It has no relevance to anything, but for some reason, it relaxed me. Now, my wife said, she's a psychologist. She said, there's a psychological problem. But my counsel, I assume you're counseling leaders as well. Take care of yourself. Take care of yourself.
The reason why I'm asking, Dave, because that is is something that is happening as we speak. There's many senior leaders and CEOs included that are suffering right now of that. And until a few years ago, we thought it was just, all directors, managers, etc. The reality is CEOs now, they're facing the same issues from burnout and other things. It's no surprise. And then we'll now that we're getting to the end of the episode, they made an interesting research of CEOs that left the organization in the US last year, and more than 35%, I don't remember exactly the number, 35, 45, 40%, they left because they couldn't stand. They couldn't do it anymore. Yeah. It's increasing. The pressure is increasing, and what is the implication to their health and to their family, relationship, you name it. So that's why I asked the question. Great. Dave, last question for the last 60 seconds. What is the final advice that you would like to share to CEOs right now that we haven't yet shared? That is what maybe give as a final message.
I'm going to use 6 words, and I love simplicity. My taxonomy is my PhD. If I were giving the CEO advice, create stakeholder value through human capability. Create stakeholder value where we started. The stakeholders that you serve as the CEO are the human beings that interact with your company. Customers, investors, citizens, employees, boards. Build human capability, talent, leadership, organization. Now, I could go further. Use technology to get you data, work with your HR, all that. But if you can create in your head, I'm here today as a CEO to create stakeholder value for all the humans who interact with my company through talent, leadership, and organization. That's the human capability. 6 words.
Love it. So I just sign it off because I love it. Dave, where people should go if they want to know more about you, your work, your books, your research?
I decided 3 years ago during COVID to go on LinkedIn. I post every Tuesday, not every day like Andrea, and I hope you'll follow him. And I make comments. It's my platform for learning. And so I hope you'll go make a comment. I'll try to respond. I love to learn. That's my North Star. I want to learn in ways that create value for others. And join me. That's where you'll find my latest work.
Thank you, Dave. And I can just endorse what you said. I mean, you are present in the fact that you are spending meaningful time and you are busy as everybody to write comments, speak precisely about you and how much you care about the work that you're doing. Dave, thank you so much. I love the conversation. And yes, I'm sure that the audience got so much value from this.
Thank you. Thank you.